Hey there, I'm going to talk about the menorah again in light of the woman in Revelations 12. So you might want to take notes here because you'll have to make the connections. I'm not going to, go verse by verse, and I don't want to make this a very long video. But the woman in Revelation, remember, John saw a sign in the heavens, and it was this woman getting ready to give birth. Okay, so when I read that and I look at the woman, I'm always reminded of the menorah, okay, because it's the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So remember, it's the fourth day of creation. The menorah is the fourth day of creation when the lights in the heavens were created, and they were to be for signs, moadim or seasons or feast, okay, days and years. He made the greater light and the lesser light to rule at night, and he made the stars. So remember, the woman is seen with the sun, the moon, the stars. That's why it reminded me of the fourth day. That's why it reminded me of the menorah when I saw that. And she is a sign. So again, we go to the fourth day of creation. The Hebrew word it is oath or oth. It's OT, and it stands for sign. So the woman is a sign. So who else was a sign in Revelations right after the woman? The red dragon who pursues her, who wants to kill the child before he has grown, because he will, when he is grown, he will destroy the dragon and the last enemy, death, etc. I won't go down that trail, but you can do that yourself. um, the red dragon has 7 heads. Okay, so there's a connection between signs and 7, because remember, there are 7 lights in the menorah or on the menorah. So make the connection. It's the fourth day of creation. It's the menorah, the fourth furnishing in the tabernacle. It's in the holy place. It's on the south side. It represents the sun, moon, and stars. The 7 phases of the moon. Watch my other videos. The 7 stars are the Pleiades. Da da da. I don't want to go down that creation video. Learn these things, okay? So you can make the connections. So you have the word 7. When do we see that first? The first time we see 7 is in Genesis on the 7th day of creation. Okay. And the word is, it has different forms. It's 7, it's 70, sevenfold. There's just different ways that it's translated in English. You remember the story about Cain? He had a sign, but the Bible uses the word mark. This is why it's very important for you to go back to the Hebrew. You cannot trust the translations. Go back to the Hebrew if you're going to understand it correctly. Cain was given a sign, but it's translated as mark so that they would not kill him. So remember, it was kind of like an oath or a swearing that whoever, if when they see this mark on Cain, that they would receive vengeance sevenfold, something like that. So go back and read that about Cain. But I'm trying to get to the point, some other points here about signs. Remember, the rainbow was a sign. How many colors are in the rainbow? 7. So sign and seven are connected. Remember when Adam was told not to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, or else? What was the oath, you might say, or what did God say? He said, "You shall surely die when you eat from that tree." So it was somewhat of an oath or a swearing that was made right in the beginning in the garden about that tree. So let's go back. Okay, we're talking about a sign, and it's mentioned on the fourth day of creation because the sun, moon, and stars are for signs. And so remember, another sign was given to Moses. Remember the burning bush? Wow, the burning bush. That was his sign. Does it remind you of a menorah, of a tree that's on fire but is not consumed? So, burning bush was a sign that he was being sent to Pharaoh to release the children. And we talked about Noah received the sign, the seven colors of the rainbow, and Cain. We can find a whole lot. So the lettering in Hebrew is sheen, bait, and ayin, and that's for seven, or all the different forms of seven. And anyway, I didn't write that all down, but you can look it up. So there's seven moadim, there's 7 days, and there's 7 years. Every 7 years, you give your land rest. That's a Sabbath rest for the land. Then every 7 days is man's Sabbath of the week. So we have, remember, days, years, moadim, and signs on the fourth day of creation, which is the Menorah, which has 7. And so remember, the reason I'm connecting 7 with oaths is because that word oath or consent, it's used in the Bible, has the same lettering as 7. And if you go back and you look at all the different times, remember when Abraham set the 7 ewe lambs, about the well and all of that? These were oaths. Whenever they made an oath, it had something to do with 7. Remember the mighty angel in Revelation with the rainbow, and he has his foot on the land, one foot on the sea. He raises his right hand. He makes an oath. You see the 7 you see the 7 colors of the rainbow above his head, and he's making an oath, and there are 7 thunders, and he has a little book, remember? So there's another example in Revelation with all these connections. The other time sign is used in Revelation is in regards to the 7 angels with the last 7 plagues. Remember that? They have the 7 bowls of wrath, and those 7 angels were also a sign. The word for swear, or the way it's translated as swear, is in Genesis 21:23. It's a primitive root, and it's sabah. It's that lettering the sheen, the bait, and the iron. It's Strong's number 7650. And the Hocane account is Genesis 4:15 and Genesis 4:24. All the times, it talks about Cain, it talks about sevenfold, and just read those two accounts there. The times it uses um, seven or forms of seven. Well, the big picture here really is pointing back to the day that the woman took from the tree she was not supposed to take from, and that's what started everything. The time clicking on that clock, because it stands for times, death, just name everything that happened, okay, because of not keeping God's instruction for them in the garden. She was deceived by the dragon. So, and remember that they were covered, and perhaps that's why the seven mighty angels that come out of the temple, they're a sign. And remember the bowls in Revelation, the seven bowls, that's Yom Kippur. That's the day of Yom Kippur. And because they were covered that day. And what body parts did they cover? They cover their faces? No. They covered their reproductive areas. That was what was covered. And this is my own opinion, but I believe that the foreskin was part of that covering that Adam received in the garden. And that's why later on they're circumcised. But that foreskin was added on that day of covering. And that's just my own. I'm just throwing that out there for anybody who wants to take a look at that. And remember what was told the dragon in the garden, that her seed, remember, would crush his head. So the sign in Revelation 12 about the woman, she's a sign. And it all points back to creation day, when they fell from eating the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So everything is getting rectified. Everything is going to go back to Messiah's rule. He's going to rule for 1,000 years with a rod of iron. And I can go down that trail too. The rod and the connection with the menorah. And you'll see that with the church of Thyatira. The assembly of Thyatira talks about the rod of iron. Okay, we're talking about Torah. We're talking about his rule. But that's another video.